Welcome back. I'm Reuben Abati from Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos. Now, gentlemen, we've been discussing corruption in Asia, particularly South Korea, and how they are dealing with it. And you were talking about lessons and the importance of institutions. But if you look at Nigeria, yes, you may say our institutions are weak, but again, in the week that just ended, the president signed a number of treaties, particularly to boost the anti-graft war and campaign in Nigeria. The particular one was a treaty with the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, on extradition. This arises from the belief that a lot of Nigerians run to UAE to hide money or to launder money. How do you rate the effort so far in terms of the fight against corruption and the involvement also of civil society? Because now we have civil society groups now saying they will get involved, and I guess there's supposed to be some kind of protest tomorrow by the Charlie Boy group again on this issue of corruption. Yes. Do you think the treaties will be enough?
Well, it's part of it. It's part of the beginning of the effort. Because what we all know is that most of the loot that people get from Nigeria are actually shifted abroad. They are not kept at home. So if you can't get them here, then you have to take the battle to them out there. And we have seen situations where very powerful people cannot be arrested and prosecuted in Nigeria, but when they are outside, they can be arrested and prosecuted. And I think this is what has informed that decision.
Yeah, but in the case of the former governor of Delta State, I guess that's what you are referring to. He was tried abroad, he was jailed abroad, but he came back to a hero's welcome. And today he's one of the major political forces in his state.
No, even while he was in prison abroad, he was still a power to reckon with. And that's not going to go away quickly. It's a culture. It's a very cultural thing whereby the more money you have, especially in a poverty-stricken society, people who are hungry are likely to take money from anybody, wherever it comes from. And so that informs that decision. And a lot of times, if the president is coming to Lagos, you see women in uniforms coming to, and then when you ask, they say they've been paid 1,000, 1,500, something as little as that, and they stand in the soaking sun, just waiting for the big man. So until you are able to do something, and I've always advocated for a form of social welfare. That's one of the reasons I contested in 2011. Until you do what is done elsewhere to reduce the propensity for corruption, it's going to be difficult. You must have what I call a credit system. In Nigeria, anybody earning a salary who is able to build a house, buy a brand new car, go and check him out. There is corruption somewhere along the line. Whereas elsewhere, you have to take a mortgage, no matter who you are. You must take a mortgage, you must take car loans to be able to buy your cars. But here you see people buy 50, 100 million naira house, and if you add up his salaries in 20 years, he cannot earn that. So it tells you something.
The Nigerian government is saying now that if you have houses you can't account for, then you pay taxes. Plenty of tax. But do you agree that the problem is actually with our value system?
I agree.
Or is it with the politicization?
No, it is the value system. And I think earlier we appreciate the fact that corruption is like a budding industry here, the better for us. And the step taken by the president in the week is actually commendable, but more like I'm concerned about enforcement and commitment. Where we are committed and we enforce these things, maybe we'll get somewhere. But it's not going to be as easy as we say it.
We must also try to strengthen our institutions.
Institutions, yeah.
Okay, very good. We'll go on a short break. I want to thank both of you for holding this segment of the program. But just before we go, is there any last thoughts on any issue that you think we probably left out in reviewing what has happened in the last week?
For me, because I know Bob is interested in the JAM thing, but I'm also interested in the 38 army officers who were wrongfully dismissed or retired. I think they have sent a letter, a petition to the president on assumption of office, and I think the president should look at their plea. These guys are promising young men, and there are other two slants to it. They said the majority of them, about 29 out of the 38, are from the south, and then nothing really, no trial, no nothing, just dismissed on sundry.
For me, I'm very worried about education in Nigeria. A situation where you can score 100 or thereabout out of 400 marks and still get admitted into the university, I think it's very, very dangerous and unreasonable.
Well, maybe next week we'll have the opportunity to look at that subject more in depth, because already there are many sides to the story,
Yes.
With the various stakeholders involved offering their own
Explanation.
We're going for a short break now, but stay tuned, because when we return, we'll then discuss the markets, we'll discuss the economy, the developments within the economy the last week. Welcome back to the Sunday talk show, This Day Live, here on the Arise News channel. I'm Reuben, Abati. And now I have with me Prisca Ndu, a leading African business expert who is a senior executive with the Access Management Corporation of Nigeria, AMCON. Now she joins me to discuss how our economy has fared in the last week. Prisca, good to see you again.
Thank you.
Right. Now let's start with the Nigerian economy during the week. What's your impression of the performance of the economy during this period? Are the figures looking out for a recovery from recession, which we've been dealing with for some time?
We'll look at it from three major perspectives. The currency, we'll look at the impact on the reserves, we'll look at the stock market, and the policy reversals or sustenance for the period. Looking at the currency, we noticed a 0.5% appreciation of the dollar against the naira.
0.5%.
0.5%, yes. That's a lot. From 366 to 370. And also a 1.5% appreciation by the euro, because the euro gained against the dollar, which also impacted our currency as well. So for that period, the decline was stable for the week. And also, when we look at the external reserves, for the past 8 weeks, we've seen an accretion that was consistent for that period. But from last week, we noticed that that has begun to decline. If we look at the figures for the end of June, which was about 30.28 billion, in comparison to the figures for the end of July, which is about $31.5 billion, there has been a decline, which is slowing down. As we've seen, the growth is not as rapid as it was for the previous quarter. We've also seen that the militancy has reduced in the Niger Delta, and we hope that that will continue as well in order not to affect production and also sabotage of pipelines. For the stock market, we saw also that the market has stabilized, because analysts had noticed that the market consistently was appreciating, but there were no fundamentals driving the growth. For instance, you see companies that hadn't done any meaningful work, and their stock prices were increasing. And then you begin to wonder, but we can see that the market is flatlining. It's beginning to check itself. It's beginning to stabilize. On policy reversals, we are also hoping that with the return of the president, that the progress we've seen in the last few weeks would remain.
I was going to ask you that, because the president's return from medical vacation generated a lot of excitement in Nigeria. Now, has this had any effect on the economy? Measurable impact?
Largely, all the indices that had been increasing rapidly have begun to slow down. Like I mentioned, the currency, our reserves as well. But I'm going to look at that from three perspectives. Perspective of policy, I'm going to look at it from the economic level, and then I'm going to look at it from the market. For policy, we are hoping that the policy environment will be such that there won't be any drastic reversals that will create an upturn in the market. And also, with respect to the economic indices, we are hoping that by tomorrow, when the inflation data is released, and then hopefully later in the week, by the 4th of September, when the NBC will release the data for GDP and the unemployment growth, that it will be positive enough to create an incentive for investors to continue investing. Like you could see last week, there was a large influx of investment, even though they were largely portfolio investments. But that's to show that there's confidence in the market and that investor confidence is also building. So we hope that that continues. At the market level, we're looking at the stock market, the money market, and then also the currency. The MPC meeting is coming up sometime between the 25th and 26th of September. So we're also looking forward to what decisions will arise as a result of that meeting. Like I said, the stock market is beginning to flatline. So we should see that stabilize over the next quarter as well.
What do you expect in the next quarter, and what are the likely risks?
Well, looking at the next quarter, like we've mentioned earlier, for the stock market generally, I mean the outlook for the market, like we mentioned, the MC meeting is coming up. October 1st broadcast is coming up as well. So we're hoping to see what direction the outcome of that will take the economy. The NBC data is also critical because it's going to release the numbers for inflation, for growth, and also for unemployment. Then market perception too is also critical because the market is highly sensitive. If there are indications that the return of the president will impact the economy negatively, investors will flee.
Yeah, but the Bureau of Statistics, in the data provided for the second quarter, has indicated that there is a drastic reduction in bank lending. Now, what's your thought on this, and what are the implications for the ordinary man?
Well, looking at the quarter two, the volume reduced by about 292 billion, as opposed to the equivalent quarter for 2016, which was about 15.5 trillion. Largely, we've seen that the CBN has been mopping up a lot of excess liquidity from the system. And as a result, banks' liquidity has also shrunk. So when you look at it in comparison to what the private sector lending is, as opposed to what public sector lending is, public sector lending, yes, may be negative, but the private sector lending increased because there was a lot of mopping up done by the CBN through the issuance of treasury bills. So on the average, yes, we may say that it has dropped in comparison to the previous quarter for last year.
The imported capital during the second quarter rose significantly by almost 98%. What's the significance for the Nigerian economy?
Well, if you also look at the nature of the capital, majority of it was portfolio investment. So it's not something we should be quick to celebrate because it's highly volatile. And the same way it came in, that's how it's going to go out. So we have to find a way to balance such volatility so it doesn't cause an upturn in the market. Because if you remember, that's part of why the stock market crashed several years ago when most of these funds had to be moved out of the system.
The price of oil seems to have also shot up to about 50-something.25 per barrel. And now we have Hurricane Harvey ravaging the United States. What's the likely impact of that natural catastrophe on the global oil market, your own estimation?
Well, so far, I think about 22% of the Gulf of Mexico oil is offline. Also, 23.2% of the Gulf of Mexico gas is also offline. And the US government has said that it would do everything possible to, if it means bringing out its reserves, to shore up the gap while they are managing the issue. About an hour ago, I heard that Houston has also been hit. So the risk increases. We're hoping that this can be managed quickly in order not to affect other parts of the country, because the imminent threat that the shale oil was before now may not be that threat anymore.
Now, Angola has just had its elections, and the President dos Santos is leaving power. We're likely to have a new dispensation in Angola. What is the future for Angola because it's Africa's second largest oil producing nation. Do you foresee any kind of instability and distortions in the market with a new president coming in and Angolans having to get used to a new leader after so many years?
Largely in Africa, politics has a large role to play on the economy. So yes, it creates a huge source for concern, if you ask me. But I don't see it being as impactful as to alter or largely affect the prices of oil in the near future. I want to believe that Angola has a largely stable economic environment, and the emergence of a new president will not adversely affect the structures they have currently.
Well, there was a subject we discussed earlier, the sentencing of the heir to the Samsung throne, so to speak, in South Korea. And you know, Samsung is a global brand. You probably use a Samsung phone, or, you know, it's a very popular brand also in Nigeria. Do you see the sentencing of Jay Lee affecting the fortunes of Samsung? More so as, you know, he's such a powerful force in the business after his father, and he's the third richest man in South Korea.
Well, it's an interesting time for this to happen, especially since Apple is about to launch the iPhone 8. Because with the timing of the market, if Samsung doesn't manage this well enough, it's going to affect market share. Because it's coming at the time where Apple is about to launch the much talked about iPhone 8. So if you ask me the impact on their market share, or I would not be quick to write them off. I'll say we should wait and see how things pan out.
But well, maybe particularly in the light of the fact that in South Korea, the chaebols always manage to survive.
True.
And even when they are sentenced, their leaders are, you know, found guilty of corrupt practices. Absolutely. They manage to survive.
Absolutely.
Jay Lee's own father was jailed, but it was, you know, the jail term was suspended. Now, in nearby Ghana, they seem to be also having issues with their economy. The budget for 2017 is, they've had to cut the budget to avoid the deficit. Now, what do you think is really going on in Ghana? Because people talk about Ghana and Nigeria. When there is problem in Ghana, we are also invariably affected. What's your take on this?
Well, if you look at the Ghana economy and you look at what the key driving factors are, I think they're also suffering the curse, the oil curse. You know, the saying that oil, absolutely. So I don't want to believe that the discovery of oil is also what is resulting in the challenges they are having. But I want to believe that the leadership of Ghana is strong enough to pull the reins back, and that what they are currently experiencing will not be for long. I have very strong faith in the leadership, and I think they will turn things around quickly.
Okay, I don't know whether you watched the first segment of the program and
yes,
the various issues that we took up.
Yes,
was there any of those issues that you feel strongly about, particularly the president's return and the outlook for the entire Nigerian nation since his return?
Well, the president's return is a positive outlook, because it had created his being away had created a lot of uncertainties, and at least in the area of that, we are happy that he's back. But also the fear is that we hope that his return will not also result in the policy slowdown or policy reversals, or create further insecurities in the system in relation to Boko Haram or the Niger Delta crisis. So far, things have been pretty stable, and I want to hope that that will continue, especially when you look at the fact that anything like a policy reversal in probably the import restriction could have either a negative or a positive impact on the economy. Also, if policy is seen to be slowing down and decisions are not taken quickly, the market can also react. Because if investors feel that their investments are not safe, given the sensitive nature of the market, it might react adversely. So it's important that, especially when you look at since his return, there were 5 key things that happened. First was the broadcast. Next was the welcome parade that was done in his honor. Mm-hmm. Then thirdly was his meeting with the security chiefs. Then we had the signed extradition with the extradition treaty with the UAE. Then lastly, his meeting with governors. But for the week, as we know, FEC was cancelled. So none of these activities had anything to do with economic policies or charting a course for the economy. So we are hopeful that as we're entering this week, better things are going to come.
Well, if I may just make a comment, you referred to the Federal Executive Council meeting not holding on Wednesday. And, the thing that we all need to realize is that it's not a meeting that must take place compulsorily. True. There's nowhere in the Constitution or anywhere at all, that the meeting must hold on a particular day or every week. It's at the discretion of the president. And, Nigerian presidents are usually criticized when they don't hold a meeting. In fact, once upon a time, a Nigerian president met with his cabinet only once a month. True. And sometimes he wouldn't even meet with them
but
for months.
But as you understand, timing is also important.
Okay.
Given the fact that he's been away for a while, people were expecting that for the first FEC meeting since he came back, he would at least show presence. So the fact that he was also not able to hold that meeting, critics are using it as a way of saying that, he either wants to check what has happened. You know how the rumor
Well, I don't want to play the role
like
of
somebody used a word for me today. They said it was a fumigation of the polity. That he's trying to fumigate the polity.
I don't want to play the role of a spokesman, but the truth of the matter is that there are processes leading to the convening of a Federal Executive Council meeting. Memos have to be submitted. Sure. Those memos have to be read. Issues need to be properly digested. And, it must be a convenient forum. But, of course, the president more than made up for not holding that meeting with other activities in the course of the week. Absolutely. Well, Prisca, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you.
You've been watching ThisDayLive, Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Reuben Abati in Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos. From all of us here at Arise News, it's bye for now, and thanks very much for watching.